what that looks like. Yeah, I don't want to give away what the killer looks like, so. This is going to be a beginner's guide for Dead by Daylight for survivors, as I am a bit of a survivor main. I will say, at the time of recording, November 2nd, 2019, I do have all of the characters and perks in the game unlocked and teachable. Killers ranging from somewhere in the 40s, and all of my survivors ranging in the prestige low 30s to 40s. So just to give a background, prestige 40s or 39s with a sizable amount of time played, devotion 4. So more than your average person. But I do want to explain off the bat what this video is. We are going to complete the survivor tutorial. I'll probably do a killer version of this as well, but we're going to complete the survivor tutorial, and then I'm going to show you guys how you should spend your blood points. So your first thing when you load this game up is I would recommend playing as a survivor rather than a killer. Playing as a survivor will give you a better understanding of how the game is played. I will say most of the game manual tips that they give you are not particularly helpful. So we're going to jump in, and I'm going to give you guys some tips and tricks for the tutorial. And what I mean by that is this is not a how to beat the tutorial. That's fairly obvious. This is going to be a slightly higher level analysis of the tutorial just to show you guys how it's done. You do get a large chunk of blood points for completing the tutorial, and that's why I want to show you this first, because your best bet is to complete the survivor tutorial. So first off the bat, where this right here is a bit subjective, where it says as a survivor your main objective is to escape the trial, that's not your main objective. Your main objective, because the game does not reward you for escaping, realistically. You'll get a small chunk of blood points. So we're gonna see, I'm just showing you, we'll follow the tutorial. Seeing a generator like this, your priority needs to be to complete this generator. Okay, holding R1. There will always be 5 generators that need to be completed. If a survivor DCs, then it will. The note here is that you always want to prioritize popping generators, even at the risk of getting killed sometimes. But when it comes to an exit gate, where just holding down the button and opening an exit gate all the way is not necessarily the best bet, especially if the killer's right behind you. Now, if you are the only survivor alive, you pretty much have no choice if the hatch is closed but to open the gate and escape. Why is my camera going crazy? Oh my god. So, looking at a generator like this that's 50%, another good example as well is, let's take that rock, one of the rocks or the trees as being a killer. You always want to position yourself on a generator like this in either 2 situations. So, let's say you have a pallet right here, okay, and the killer's coming from this direction. There's either 2 ways to position yourself on a gen like this. One is to be here so that your body is kind of hidden. If the killer's coming from that direction, hiding right here means you're kind of safe. The killer doesn't know if you're actively working on the generator or if the generator has stopped, and you're able to conceal your body easier. Alternatively, the second best position to be is right here with your camera angle behind. That way there, if the killer comes from this direction, you're able to burst over to the pallet without having to run around the generator. The worst situation that you can be in, however, is to be on one of the 2 end positions. Being on this position right here is not very good. Another thing as well with skill checks is, as a survivor, as a beginner, don't prioritize going for good skill checks. You want to prioritize, don't prioritize great skill checks, sorry. You want to just focus on hitting the skill check, and a great skill check will come naturally. Let your reflexes build naturally over time. Also, you don't need to run everywhere or hide. This is not a very good idea. This will piss the killer off. Don't piss your killer off unless you are a high enough skill. This is not that hard to do. Okay, so you can't go through here, right? In game, you might. But... See, crouching doesn't alert birds, but it moves you slower. The key here is not to fast vault. If you're outside the terror radius, there's no reason to vault. By the way, that bird, triggering that bird, that does not do jack shit. I'll tell you that right now. There's no reason to fast vault that. The Killer Shack is the central building found in every game. Let's be clear on something. Going down to the basement early game is not advisable. The advantage to going down to the basement is it enables you to pull an item out of a chest. That's it. Okay, let's be clear right here. So you notice what I did here? By hiding in the locker? That's what's gonna happen if you actually do that. And now I'm dead. Okay, note to self. Don't do this. Hit try not. Now you're dead on hook. Got a chest down here. While you're injured, your best bet would be to run. Killers are going to be able to track your blood trail that forms behind you anyways, so having the added speed is a better way to do this. A better way to move around the environment. I shouldn't have enough for a full heal here. Unless they patch that. Yeah, I don't have enough for a full heal. Oh no, the game's gonna stretch it out. Okay. In-game, that's not gonna be an accurate representation. There. Oh, there's no lockers or chests down here. There's no reason to be quiet here. Killers, no, you're not in the terror race, you can run. Trying to keep your... What you want to do is play it careful. So, this is normally a very wise idea if you're not in the killer's terror radius. So, healing another survivor works best outside of the killer's terror radius. Sometimes it's a necessary thing to do in the terror radius, but it's important to note that you can stop at any time. Repairing this final generator with a teammate is not necessarily a good idea. Survivors suffer a penalty. That explains why the bar is red right there. They suffer a penalty when on the same generator without the assistance of a perk or an item. And you see, that just comes down with time. Yeah, with timing. I'll tell you what I'm going to do right here. So she can complete the gen, okay. I wanted to see if the tutorial would actually let the Meg just complete the gen. That's how you find the hatch as well, is to find... So listen, So you hear it right here. It's basically a game of hot and cold. Going away. Going away. Closer. There we go. Note that killers can close the hatch on you. Okay. So now you'll get a large chunk of blood points by doing this. You notice there's a few things that this game does not explain to you. This game does not explain what pallet stuns do. This does not explain vaults and jumping from second stories. So now we're going to move on to, you've completed the survivor tutorial, and now you are going to your survivor screen. So for argument's sake, I do want to, when we're on the survivor screen here, I want to mention a few characters. So, Steve, Nancy, Ash, Detective Tapp, Quentin Smith, and Laurie Strode are DLC characters that can only be purchased with Auric cells. As a newcomer to the game, you're not going to purchase those. Same thing, another thing is Kate Denson, Adam Francis, Jeff Johansson, and Jane Romero are game-specific creations that you can purchase with in-game currency or Auric cells. Doesn't matter, you're not going to have any of these perks. The only characters we are going to focus on are going to be the top 8, plus David King. David King is a free character. The DLC is a free DLC to download. Bill is now free on both console and PC, and both Ace and Feng Min are free on console, but on PC, I believe you have to purchase them with iridescent shards. So, mainly, the first thing you should do when you get your bonus blood points is to look at the characters that you have available, and you want to purchase blood points, which is how you level up individual characters. Okay? So what this is a blood web, this is a higher level blood web. This blood web is going to have more things in it than what you would see at a beginning level. But basically, this is a good idea of what to expect. So the blood points that you have, you see I only have 212, I don't have enough to actually purchase anything. When you make a purchase in a category, it's gonna pick up one of these items, and you will have that unlocked in your loadout. So you'll have the perks, you'll have offerings, which are something that you bring into a game to affect the outcome, or you have items, which vary wildly. So, looking at what you should do, the first thing that you should do as a survivor is you should pick the character of Claudette. Okay? Claudette, if you look at her 3 teachable perks, Claudette's 3 teachable perks are not too impressive. These 2 aren't that impressive until you get to higher level play, but self-care is a necessity as a survivor, especially if you're new to the game. Self-care basically gives you the ability to heal yourself without an item or a person. So, what you need to do is you need to get Claudette up to level 40 for this perk to become teachable. Therefore, your prime objective should be to take any blood points you have and to put them into Claudette. Your goal should be to get her up to level 40 and purchase the teachable perk. Now, once you have Claudette at level 40, you should not put any more blood points into her once you have the perk as teachable. Your next bet should be to put blood points into other characters in order to get that perk teachable on them. So the next perk you need to go for behind self-care is going to be on David King. David King has a perk that is teachable that is called We're Going to Live Forever. I actually don't have it equipped right now. It's called We're Going to Live Forever. What this perk does is this perk gives you bonus blood points at the end of the game, after the game is completed, based off of the amount of protection hits and safe hook rescues you get. Ideally, what this means is that you are going to be given up to, if this perk is at tier 3, this perk will double the amount of blood points that you earn from a game for completing actions that you would normally perform in a game as well. This encourages positive gameplay. So, and this is one of the fastest ways that you can level up as a survivor. Now, notice how I'm not explaining any very gameplay sensitive things. For example, Dead Hard is a perk that unlocks while you are trying to get David King up to level 40. However, Dead Hard, while being an effective tool for survival, is something that low-level survivors generally don't get the true value out of. Therefore, it is not advised that you make that. Another perk that is an ideal thing to teach, your third character you should go after, is Dwight. So while Claudette will give you self-care, which gives you some survivability, and David King gives you We're Gonna Live Forever, which gives you bonus blood points, Dwight is the best character for learning cooperative team play. So looking at the perks... Wait, what? Wait, it took all my perks off Dwight. That's odd. It took all my perks off of Dwight. There's two perks here that you should be going for on Dwight. Those are Bond and Prove Thyself. Now, these two perks play very different from one another, but what they do is one perk gives you good information, the other perk enables you to complete objectives faster. So honestly, this comes down to what you are trying to do. What Bond does is Bond reveals the aura of allies when they are within 36 meters of you. This enables you as the survivor to be able to know what your teammates are doing and to easily find teammates. The other perk, Prove Thyself, enables you to get a 10% repair speed bonus when working on another generator. It also grants you bonus blood points for those cooperative actions, those being healing and generators repairs. What this perk does is it removes the penalty that survivors get from working on a gen together, but it only applies to one other person. Both of these perks are incredibly solid perks to run at a beginning level. While I would not recommend Self-Care, We're Gonna Live Forever, Prove Thyself, and Bond as your beginning build, this is an idea of what perks you want to go for. The next character I would recommend leveling up would be either Meg or Nia, depending on your choice of character. Depending on what you want to do, what you want to go for. I would not recommend spending your blood points on Ace or Jake until later on. Same thing with Feng Min. Even though Feng Min does have a good teachable in Lyth, I can't recommend that you actually run Lyth until you get to a slightly higher level in the game. So the next two characters that you want to go for between Nia or Meg, arguably Meg is the easier choice. So when learning how to get away from the killer, Sprint Burst is the better perk for beginners because you just press L1 and you go faster. Now, in the long run, Sprint Burst becomes the least effective of the exhaustion perks, but the value of Sprint Burst is that early on, it's an effective way to get away from beginning killers. You forget, you're also going to be playing, more than likely, against killers that are also learning the game as well, so Sprint Burst is an effective tool in your arsenal for gaining distance. The other perk that you want to pick up is Adrenaline. Adrenaline is a perk that will instantly heal you one health state, and will give you a burst of speed, and overrides any exhaustion perks that you have. So if you are running Sprint Burst, Adrenaline will override Sprint Burst and give you the effect. The reason why Adrenaline is very good, and that should be your prime focus as a teachable, is because Adrenaline works well if you don't have self-care. Near the end of the game, Adrenaline will heal you on your way to the exit gate to potentially take an additional hit from the killer. I say potentially because most killers like to run a specific perk that negates Adrenaline altogether. However, the burst of speed and the fact that it overrides other perks like Sprint Burst make it a very effective early tool. The other character you should be focusing on early game is Nia. Nia is a relatively high-level survivor, but she has an exhaustion perk and balanced landing that is very effective if you know how to use it, and more often than not, most newer players will gravitate towards Urban Evasion. Urban Evasion enables you to play very stealthy by having a very fast crouch walk speed. The downside to Urban Evasion and the downside to Sprint Burst, which is why I did not recommend these be some of the first perks that you go after, is because as a beginning survivor, if you rely on Sprint Burst and Urban Evasion early on, unfortunately many survivors get accustomed to that playstyle, and as you get more experienced in the game, those two perks really do not help you in the long run. The next survivor that you should prioritize, once you have your blood points spent on Claudette getting her to 40, David King get to 40, and Dwight getting to 40, and getting their teachables. An important thing to note is once you purchase the last teachable for that character, immediately stop putting blood points into them so that you begin getting teachables on other characters. Now, I want to explain why to do that. By prioritizing Claudette first, Claudette realistically only needs self-care to survive, with the rest of the perks being entirely situational. So her having less choices for teachable perks does not necessarily matter. You're able to simply play Claudette just with self-care alone, and it's entirely possible to escape running nothing but self-care, so having a smaller pool of teachables doesn't hurt the game. Consequently, David King is the next character you need. Once you have self-care on David King to go along with We're Gonna Live Forever, by having those two perks together, you're going to escape from the majority of the games you play at a lower level, as long as you don't do anything stupid. And the We're Gonna Live Forever is going to guarantee you get more blood points so that you can get other characters leveled up faster. By having Claudette's perks teachable on David King as well, in addition to having Dead Hard, you'll also unlock things like Botany Knowledge. So, by having a good build of Self-Care, Dead Hard, We're Gonna Live Forever, and Botany Knowledge as just a beginning teachable build, you'll be able to get yourself out of situations a lot easier. Moving over to Dwight as the next character that you prioritize, on Dwight, once you unlock Self-Care and We're Gonna Live Forever on Dwight, pretty much stacking that with Prove Thyself makes it so that you're able to complete generators and get hooks to reward you bonus blood points. It's going to make it basically impossible for you to die. On top of this, if you're trying to create the ultimate build, picking up an exhaustion perk off of Meg or Nia makes it so that you're able to escape. The last perk I would prioritize as well as a beginning survivor is teachable off of Bill. That's the perk Borrowed Time. So this immediately negates killers that tend to camp. As long as they have a terror radius, any hook rescue that you perform is going to be safe, thus guaranteeing you blood points off We're Gonna Live Forever. Being able to combo We're Gonna Live Forever and Borrowed Time, along with Adrenaline and Exhaustion perk, are very strong early game strategies. The perks that Ace, Jake, and Feng Min offer are not too game-breaking at an early level, which is why I'm not talking about them. One last tip I will give you before you go is on Blood Webs. It's important to note that on early Blood Webs, notice this is a level 40 Blood Web that has 3 perks. On early Blood Webs, you always need to take the perk. Later on, when you have multiple Blood Webs, as long as you make sure you pick one perk out of the Blood Web, you're fine. 2 things you want to prioritize in a Blood Web. The first thing are items, and the second thing are blood point offerings. In this Blood Web right here, my priority would be to get the perk Unbreakable. So I have to purchase these 2 items in order to get access to it. There are 2 items that I will be able to purchase before the entity begins consuming things, and I have to take that perk right away. So purchasing these 2 offerings, the next 2 things I would purchase would be the sealed envelope for the bonus blood points, and the med kit because I will get the most value out of that. Then I would purchase the perk, and from there I can't help you because it depends on what the Blood Web takes. So always prioritize blood point offerings and items. Add-ons are only really required if you are planning on running a souped-up piece of equipment, like a super strong med kit or a super strong map, but these come with time and experience, so I can't really help you on that. Anyways, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed.